Welcome to Truman's Town Hall with your host, Matt Truman.
Hello, this is Matt Truman. Thank you for downloading this episode. Thank you for sharing with a friend. Today is October 5th, 2021. Today on the podcast, we have Anita Kitchen. She is running for City Council, Ward 4, in the city of Huber Heights. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Anita Kitchen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have here with me Miss Anita Kitchen. She's running for Ward 4 in the city of Huber Heights. Miss Kitchen, thank you for joining us on Truman's Town Hall.
Thank you, Matt, for having me. I really appreciate it.
So let's just start. If you would, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself to all those listening to the podcast.
Well, Matt, I was raised on a large farm in Clinton County, and upon graduating from high school, I moved up to Dayton to go to Wright State. While up here, I got a degree in disability services, and during that internship, I got hired on by Montgomery County Board of Developmental Disabilities. And once completing my internship, they kept me on. 6 months after I got hired on, I got the opportunity to do the recreation program for the Montgomery County Board of Developmental Disabilities. And I created the program. Somebody had the job about 8 months prior to me, but really hadn't done anything yet. And I was able to take that position they told me, here's your salary, and we have no other money for you. You got to find how to fund this. So I quickly learned how to, go and work with the public to get this rec program going for individuals with disabilities. And it was a real critical time at that point, just due to the fact that people were being brought out of Orient. A lot of communities didn't want people with disabilities in their communities. So it was a lot of going out and advocating and, explaining to them how, this isn't going to make their properties go down in value, that, they're going to be staffed. They're not, nothing harmful was going to happen to you or your house or your loved ones. Right. So it was a lot of educating and everything with that job. But I was able to create this rec program that I took from no budget to when I retired. And 2017, I had a budget of about $750,000. So excellent. I'm pretty proud of the fact that I was able to do all that in my career. I served approximately 3,000 people per year in my program that lived in Montgomery County. And still to this day, I'm a big advocate for getting people with developmental disabilities out in the community and being part of the community. During this time also, I was a single foster parent. I had 23 foster kids go through my house in a 10-year time period. And, I learned a lot about, people having struggles and having their kids removed, but more so the struggles that the children were going through. Hearing stories about what kind of housing and home life that they lived in was, amazing that some of these kids survived. So I've worked the social service end of children's services. Then come along back in the mid-90s, as I'm still a foster parent, we had two brothers that literally, the mom had already had been deceased. Dad died, and there was no group home to keep these two brothers together. At the time, the state funding wasn't coming in for new developments for group homes, and I had worked with them for a number of years, and I remember coming home from work that night and saying, I'm like, these two are going to be separated. And my foster children looked at me and says, no, they're not. They got to move in here. And I'm like, what are you guys doing to me? And they're just like, they're part of the family. They got to move in here. And so at this point, my mother had fallen ill, and so I had moved my mom up here just a few months previous. So my mom was living here. I had 3 foster children, and I'm suddenly going to the powers of being at the Board of Developmental Disabilities and saying, okay, we've been family friends with these individuals and their families. What do we need to do to move them in here? And suddenly we are moving two of them into my house, and it's only a 4-bedroom house. And so there was literally 7 of us in this 4-bedroom house,
Right.
but we made it work. So they lived here until they died. They were older than me, and they died, one in 2010 and 2014. So going on with my life, in 2008, I ended up meeting an individual through a mutual friend, and ended up getting engaged. And in 2009, I married Brian, and he has
Awesome.
been a wonderful, wonderful husband, and just very supportive of me, especially through this campaign. I don't know what I would have could do without him, to be real honest. And so we live here now with my mother, who's aging. She'll be 87 this year, and I don't think she tells everybody she's 87, so I'm not saying something she would be embarrassed by. And my husband and I, and 4 dogs. And I have lived in Huber now since 1988, so 33 years of being in Huber Heights. I've really, this is my home.
That's excellent. There's another thing I've noticed. You're the executive director of FOA, Families of Addicts. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, as I said, I feel I've had a very blessed life, Matt, to be real honest. And I don't know how I've gotten so lucky in my life to have, situations come up. But I was able to retire in 2017 with 30 years in at the county, and did the retirement thing, and flew to Florida a few times during the winter, and then realized, yeah, but the problem is my husband's not retired. So after a little bit, it's like, okay, I'm done with this. This is, flying 4 times with my mom. I'm just like, okay, I'm done with this. I need to go back to work. And as I said, I was a young retiree. So I applied and got the job with FOA, Families of Addicts, and that too has been a blessing. I don't know how many people have been blessed to have 2 careers in their lives that they absolutely love, and just feel like they've built up a friendship that they can never be broken. Family of Addicts is a wonderful nonprofit that works with families who have loved ones that are in addiction or have died of addiction. It's a variety. Some have passed away and they still come to help out other families. Some have people who are still currently using. Some have people in recovery. But it's literally an organization that works on healing the family, not just the individual in addiction. So we do it through education. Our mission statement is to educate, empower, and embrace, and we truly are our mission statement. That's exactly what we do. We educate families on addiction, we embrace them, and we empower them to, learn what their limits are, put down the boundaries that they need to for their individuals. So it's just been a great experience, because I had very little knowledge of the addiction world, and I feel like I've now worked with 2 jobs that's had an amazing amount of stigma to them, and I really feel that that's going to help me through this campaign and helping people, because I've been able to overcome a lot of stigma of situations to be able to help our citizens in Huber on whatever their situation is, I feel.
And you guys just won the best nonprofit in the addiction field from Dayton Magazine? I thought I
Correct. Yes, I just got that award last Thursday night.
Excellent.
Yeah, we've gotten a number of awards. I joked because it was my 30th anniversary last Wednesday with the organization, and my first full day of work, I got to go to a luncheon, and we were the South Metro's Business of the Year that year. And so
Great.
my first full day of work was accepting that award, and my first full day of starting my 4th year with FOA was accepting an award. So I'm kind of liking that trend a little bit, but I just feel that, the families I work with and everything, it's a lot of volunteers that, support FOA. It's it's an organization that is me and one other staff person. So there's a lot of families that volunteer and help, and I have been blessed with some amazing families through that organization.
I think we could do an entire podcast just on that alone. I did a podcast when I first started doing podcasts with someone who was coming out of addiction, and it was just, it's remarkable how folks, when they bring themselves out of addiction, what they can actually do in the world, and just the productivity in society, and just it's amazing. So you're doing great work.
It's amazing how our government just doesn't, how should I put this? They don't look at the long-term wellness they could help with people with addiction.
Certainly.
That could become taxpayers instead of them sucking off of the system. They don't empower them to do better how our system's set up, and it's very frustrating.
So maybe sometime you can come back and talk all about FOA. I think that would be a great podcast.
Love to.
What I would like to ask you is, with this campaign, how's it going for you? Are you getting a lot of attention, or are you talking to a lot of folks? What's how do you feel about it?
I'm feeling really, really good about this campaign. As I said, I've known a large number of people I worked with at the county, and now through FOA, I just feel like I'm connecting with my ward. I've always connected with my neighbors. I've always had relationships with my neighbors, but going out more into the ward and stuff like this, I can connect. I understand everyday people's living. My mom was a single parent, so I have a lot of single parents in my ward. I understand that struggle because I lived that struggle. As I said, there's a large amount of people with developmental disabilities in the county. I had told some of the council back in 2018, right after I retired, I said, I had made the comment, we have the largest amount in 45424 zip code of people with developmental disabilities. And they're like, how do you know this? And I said, trust me, I had to do mailers for my job, every month basically. And one day I just was curious because it would be bulk mail and I have to count it. I'm like, oh my gosh, Huber has the most people with developmental disabilities in this whole county. And they're like, why is that? And I'm like, have you come outside your door and looked? It's brick ranch houses. I said, everywhere. I said, they're easily accessible. They're easily, they're great for senior citizens and for people with disabilities. And I said, so families flock here. And at the time, it was affordable. It's expensive to have a child with a disability. So this was an affordable means of living being in Huber.
What are your goals going into this campaign? Before I ask that, what made you're the executive director of this fantastic nonprofit, helping a lot of folks. You've been helping folks. What made you decide, and I say that in jest because you've done all these great things. What made you decide to jump into the political world? What brought that on?
Well, there's a few things. I realized there was a big disconnect between our government and the schools and the chamber. Back in 2018, I believe it was 18 or 19, Matt, our road was getting redone here on Alter, and they were digging up the road. Well, the problem was they were digging up our road 3 days before school was let out.
Oh, Lord.
I live 3 houses from the back of St. Pete's lot and 2 blocks away from Monticello. And I was going out of my house, and the traffic is all the way, both sides down Celestine. I can't tell you how far it was. And horns are honking. One father's getting out yelling. You couldn't get through, and it was a deadlock, and people were trying to get their children to school. And so I called the city office, and I said, we got a problem here on Alter. And they get an engineer on the phone, and I said, why did you start this project with 3 days left of school? I didn't even have children in school and knew there was only 3 more days left of school.
Right.
Anyhow, she's just like, well, we contract that out. And I'm like, okay, well, why would you not put it in the contract that, you know what roads the schools are on. Why wouldn't you break that in the contract that they would have to start work the day after school, whatever that day that is, on this road, and then they have to be done, a day before school starts. I said, that would make normal sense. And she goes, well, we don't write contracts like that. And I said, well, why not? And she goes, because we don't. And I'm like, you realize when you write a contract, you are the customer. You write the contract, what's best for you. They are the people that's getting paid. So
certainly
they need to do what you ask them to do. And she goes, well, I don't even know when school's in session and not in session. And I was like, have you tried a phone call or a website? Because either one of those would have worked.
Right.
And so I'm just like, wow, we are very far removed from, what's going on in our backyard. Well, then last year when they pulled the chamber membership, once again, I'm a first aid CPR instructor. And how I explain that situation is I teach people first aid and CPR, not because I ever hope that somebody has to give CPR. I hope to goodness you never have to give it. But you know what? I'm going to provide you with the tools in case you ever have to, that you know what to do if that situation arises. And that's exactly what I looked at with the chamber. They were supplying the tools if for some reason the gathering for George Floyd went bad, not thinking nobody wanted it to go bad, and it didn't, thank goodness. But the chamber was supplying the tools in case it did, not trying to invoke, something happening. It was just informing people, here's what you do.
Right, I read that letter.
And in order for the city to pull their membership from the chamber, I was shaking my head going, they were just trying to educate people, because with so many retail stores up there, it's a lot of, teenagers or young adults that work there. And to be real honest, if I was working one of those stores and never been in a situation like that, I would have been glad to have that information, just to know what to do. So I don't look at it as being any different from first aid and CPR. You just supply the people with the information. It wasn't intended, in my opinion, to be something to provoke, a riot or anything like that. Also, I just feel that we haven't played fair with the chamber. They were wanting to bring back that 4-day festival at the 4th of July. And I sat in the meetings and heard, no, you can only have this part of the park. You can't have this part. And
those were some very interesting meetings. I watched those meetings, and I knew at that point, when I was watching those meetings, something is up. And I had known before. I mean, there's always talk around the town about how the chamber and the city of Huber Heights, some of the staff members, and at that point, the now former city manager and the president of the chamber really didn't get along very well. So there has always been those discussions, and those meetings, you could just tell they were trying to stall it. They were trying to switch things up to get the chamber not to do this, because there are some people in that city, no matter what good you're trying to do, they won't let you do it because there's ego involved. I don't know. I could go on, but I apologize for interrupting.
I feel like there's a point that you need to let your personality go to the side and do what's best for the city. And that's another situation. And they just made it so rough that, it ended up, it wasn't going to happen. Then COVID hit. And so it really wasn't going to happen. But, it's okay. Somebody wants to bring back something that the citizens in Huber loved, and they weren't asking for any cash donation from the city. They weren't asking for anything but the space, and to see them just
I've been there.
Much headache about it I just was shaking my head going, why would you ever do this? Why would you just cause such an issue about it? So that was another reason, and I'm going to be real honest, I was on Arts and Beautification for a brief 5 months, and the whole time I was on there, I asked for a budget. You can go back to the videos. Every month I'm like, what's our budget? And I was just it's about, well, what? About is never in terms of a budget.
No.
I can't run my household of, I about have this much money, and this is taxpayer money. We should have had in black and white, this is what you started out at the beginning of the year that got appropriated to you. This is how much you've spent, and this is how much is left. And that should be given every month to these boards and commissions, period. That is how you operate a transparent and just, accountable system.
So
and
I take it,
also,
I take it that when, as you're running for office, you're running on you're running with a fiscal mind. You want the city to be very fiscally honest with the residents, the taxpayers. Am I wrong on that?
It sounds like exactly right, Matt. I mean, I couldn't have gotten my budget at developmental disabilities up to $750,000 by running a half put together budget. I had to be accountable for every little bit. This was people's tax paying money. And no, it's not acceptable. And I don't even care, I got somebody put on Facebook, well, you left arts and beautification. Yes, I did. Well, you didn't get your way. No, go back to the videos. It was frustrating. It was so frustrating after coming 30 years. And really it was 32 years, because while I was in college, I ran the City of Kettering Park and Recs program for developmentally disabled while I was in college. So I was responsible. It was a part-time position, but I was responsible for the budget then. And so working basically 32 years in government, and I don't care if it's $16 or $16 million, it is still taxpayer money. And if somebody walks in, you should be able to hand them, this is how the money's spent.
Certainly.
This is what we had, and this is how the money's spent. And so for me to be in those meetings asking for budgets, not getting it, and being told, no, you can't do stuff, that seemed to be my whole time on that arts and beautification. I was told everything we couldn't do, and just keep approving money. And me asking for budgets, not getting it, I was just frustrated. And it's like, okay, this is, I have other things to do in my life. As I said, I just started FOA at that point, and I'm like, my energy can be better spent elsewhere, because, I wasn't appointed by the citizens, because people's like, well, what makes you think you'll stay on council? People are going to be voting me on council. This isn't going to be an appointed situation. This is going to be the citizens electing me to that position, and I will take it very serious.
And you'll have a vote on that budget.
Right. And also, we need to trust these boards and commissions. We don't ask them for their opinions when they're on these commissions. Basically, we're told you always had to use Eichelberger. Really, that's the only place you can use. Well, can we do an art show? No, we don't do that. It's arts and beautification. What do we do?
Right.
Well, we don't do art shows. Okay, so what's the purpose of this? Well, you run movies, and you do the 4th of July parade, and you do the Christmas tree lighting. Okay, so why are you asking for ideas? Because my ideas are going through my head of a ton of other things, and I just keep getting told, no, we don't do that. So why put people on boards and commissions if that's how we're going to act to them? I feel we have some very intelligent, very bright, very creative people in Huber Heights.
Definitely.
Let's utilize them. If they want on these boards and commissions, give them a budget and go, if it's, come back to us quarterly, let us know what you're doing. So if anything's controversial, we can go, can you reconsider this? But otherwise, do what we're putting you there to do.
Would you say there are folks out there who might be intimidated to join these other boards and commissions because of the, lack of a better word, clique atmosphere that happens within the city government?
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. There is definite cliques. There is definite, I refer to it, Matt, as family and friends plan.
Right.
And, and to get that outsider to come in. I knew nobody. I knew absolutely nobody when I started on that board and commission. Now, since then, I've made some amazing friends. I mean, one of the people's my treasurer for my campaign. Another is
Who's that?
Terry Lucier.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Great.
Very trustworthy, honest, concerned citizen. Just flat out a concerned citizen. And that's exactly who I'd want for a treasurer. And that's why I got her. So yes, I feel
she's not afraid to disagree with people she likes.
No.
And when she does, it's, I'm going off on a tangent here, but she's very respectful in her disagreements. And it's not like, oh, I hate you. No, it's just like, you know what? Hey, your idea, I don't agree with that idea. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
She gives another opinion for people to look at. Now, oftentimes people go, oh, no. But in every decision, there's two sides to stuff. And we need people that can look at all angles of things to make the best decision for the most people. And she just brings that aspect. I'm very lucky to have our paths crossed in life, because she's just an amazing person that, as I said, I feel like she always has the citizens of Huber's best interest at heart. So yeah, it's, but that was a very cliquish thing. But the final thing that set me over the edge to run is the infrastructure here in Ward 4 is really bad. This year, 2 weeks ago at the council meeting, a presentation was done that we have had so far this year. That was in September, 132 water breaks. I know this week there's been at least 2 more that I know of here.
Wow.
So we're at 134 breaks, and we're not hitting November and December when the weather starts turning and water main breaks happen. So,
I was thinking that every time. I haven't posted on Facebook or anything about this, but it's, why are these happening? And here's the thing. They're happening during the summertime. Water main breaks happen during the winter time. And the last I heard, the city engineer blamed it on the water softening. How would that happen? No one's ever questioned him on this. How would the water softening affect that? It wouldn't be the water softening, in my opinion. It would be the water pressure upgrades that they've done up north. But they don't want to point that out because that was a Team Heights thing that was done. The water softening was a Team Huber thing that was pushed. So I found that quite interesting. That's just my opinion. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that's my opinion. Anyway.
Well, I had 3 breaks at my block in front of my house in a 6-month time period. And I am like, oh my gosh, when you're trying to get ready to go to work in the morning and you go to take a shower, and there's no water, or, it's a Sunday and you're having to do laundry and it's like, oh no, guess what? Your water's, taking 8 hours to get this fixed, and sorry, just gonna have to do laundry some other time, Just, it's an inconvenience. But not only that, it's unhealthy.
Certainly.
People, I'm lucky enough, it's a 2-person working household with a retirement in my household. So we can afford to go out and get the bottled water and stuff. But the average household in Huber is $56,000 income. Okay, well, $56,000 if you have 2 or 3 children, and a 2-family household where there's 5 people, maybe 6 in the household, they might not have the luxury and the extra money to be running to the laundromat, to be going out and getting bottled water
if
for,
you can find
a few
bottled
days.
water.
Yeah, I mean, since COVID, yes, that is sometimes an issue. And so there's just, and we have seniors that might not be able to get out to get this.
Exactly.
There's so many circumstances, and that's the thing. Ward 4 is a lot of seniors, a lot of people with disabilities, a lot of working families. And so this is a big inconvenience. And, I'm not trying to down council, but very few of council lives in the older section of Huber to understand what's going on. And so when I'm on Facebook or something saying, hey, this is a problem, and that, I've been corrected because I use the word Band-Aid. I'm sick of the Band-Aids being put on the water lines. I get corrected that, they've spent X million dollars. This isn't a Band-Aid. Well, yeah, it is. When it keeps happening over and over, you're putting on a Band-Aid. These pipes in the section I live at, my house is almost 60 years old. So these water lines are old and they're starting to crumble. And they're putting these
Indeed.
liners in. They're putting liners in currently. And what I'm understanding about the liners is, yeah, they could be okay, but if your water, the main line is not in good shape and it starts crumbling, then there's nothing for these liners to adhere to. So ultimately it's going to be, you need to replace the pipe. So I'm like, okay, so you might be spending millions to do these liners, but if the pipes aren't in, good shape, then ultimately you're going to be replacing them anyway. So why are we wasting our time on this? Why aren't we just replacing the pipes? Yes, it's inconvenience, but if you communicate it to citizens that, hey, this is going to be down for this X amount of time, then people can prepare for it. But then you have a fix that's going to be for another, long term. And then people have safe, healthy, clean water.
Right.
And you don't have this inconvenience. That's, and somebody questioned me, what would you do? Well, I have a list through last year, the beginning of this year, of the roads over the last 2 years that have had, the water main breaks. So you said X amount of dollars when you're doing your budget, and I'm just throwing this out as an example.
Sure.
Say, okay, we're going to set aside $10 million for this project this year. Then you just look at the streets that have had the most breaks, and those are the streets, we can do 4 streets with this 10 million. I'm just throwing out an example. Okay, we can do X amount of streets. Okay, we're going to do these 4 that's had the most breaks. Let's get these streets done. Now, this might take 10 to 15 years to get this done, but you know what? Then it's done for many years to come.
Right.
Or
perhaps they could test the system, and if the city engineer truly believes it's the softening, turn that off for a few days or a week. If it's not that, then turn off the pressure system that they've put in, and then figure out exactly what is causing all of these breaks. I don't know. That's just a thought, but I just thought of that. It doesn't mean anything, but I was just throwing it out there.
Well, I mean, one of the council members even put on Facebook that, we knew when, I love this, we knew when we increased the pressure up to Carriage Trail that the sludge would come off of the pipes in the older sections and possibly cause it to break.
Where was that ever talked about?
Okay.
Where was that ever talked about? I don't remember. I paid attention to Huber Heights for a long time, and I never remember anyone talking about how the sludge, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
But I'm sitting here going, okay, as a council person, and you knew that this was most likely going to be the problem, and your response was not to do anything to help the people down here in the older section.
Wow.
Or be proactive about that. I just was like, are you joking?
Who said that? Do you know? Do you remember?
I do, but I would prefer, I'm trying to keep peace, Matt.
It's cool. Hey, I'm just,
but
I
yes.
will respect that, but we'll find out who said it's all right.
But yeah, I mean, but to say that publicly on Facebook that you knew that this was most likely going to happen, I shook my head going, so we're less worthy of good health, healthy, safe water because we're not living in, a new area of town. I can't treat people that way.
No.
I just can't. So that was the straw that broke the camel's back to me, was when our water keeps breaking. I'm just like, as I said, my husband looked at me one night and he goes, you can keep getting angry or you can try to do something about it.
Awesome.
And I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm in. Let's do this. So
So
that's what jumped me over the edge.
great. I saw that you have campaigned. It looked like you were at a meet and greet with Glenn Otto, Richard Shaw, Frank Wiley, who we've had on this podcast. You guys did a meet and greet over at Otto and Associates. So is this now Teen Huber 2.0?
No, it is not. It is not. I have to say that Glenn and Richard have been more than respectful. And, Frank and I and Noemi are first time ever running for anything politically. Never have done this before. And so, they're the ones that I'm like, okay, where do you get hand cards at? Where do you go for this? Where do you go get signs?
Right.
I mean, the funniest story was Frank came in one evening because they said, well, we'll meet with you and tell you where to go get some of this stuff where we found it's cheaper, more reasonable, because I have had a few very kind people donate some money to me, but that's been here in the last 2 months. To get started, it's been self-funded. I got $100 from my mother-in-law saying, I have faith in you. And other than that, my campaign report is me and my husband until, as I said, the last 2 months. But no, I don't have any companies. I don't have anybody. It's literally just been citizens here in Ward 4 that's just like, I like what you're doing. Here's a donation. But going back to everything, so we were meeting one night and Frank goes, I ordered some signs, and I hate to tell this story on Frank, and he goes, I thought it wasn't a bad deal. I paid $15 a piece for it, and I'm sitting here doing figures in my head going, oh my gosh, I'm like, we are going to go broke for this campaign. And Glenn and Richard looks at him and says, oh, Frank, I hope you didn't get a lot, but we have a place we can get them for like around $3 a piece. So that's the Glenn and Richard's thing. Glenn and Richard have told us from day one, we just want people that are independent thinkers. We don't want people that are going to rubber stamp stuff. We want to be quizzed. We want to have questions asked. We want independent thinkers. And I'll be real honest, Matt, I've told Glenn and Richard, I said, if you guys come up with something that I don't like, I absolutely will go against you. And they're like, good.
Definitely
That's
good.
what we want.
Right.
That's what we want up there. To do what's best for the citizens in Huber, you need independent thinking people, not people that if an idea of certain groups come up, that everybody goes along with it no matter what and not question it. And I mean, I hate to say this, but I was always the why kid. So I ask lots of questions. I want answers. I want to make an educated vote. When I am up there, I want to know the facts before I vote on anything. I want to know what my options are and what, are we spending the money the right way? I'm always going to be questioning the money. So are we doing the right thing for the taxpayers? Are we being good stewards of their money? So, yeah, I am going to be the questioning force on council.
Excellent. That needs to happen. The citizens deserve representation that listens to them. That is a rare thing happening not only in Huber Heights, but throughout this country, where citizens are being heard, because governments are just, when I say governments, I mean federal, state, local, throughout the country. They've stopped listening to the people. They're just doing whatever they think. And hey, if they get reelected by, folks, great. If not, oh well. I'm glad that when I asked the Team Huber 2.0, I'm glad you said that you're going to be an independent voice. Sure, you can campaign with those folks, great. But I believe that Frank Wiley as well will be an independent voice. And if there are things that he disagrees with, he would vote no as well, as does Glenn and Richard. They vote against each other all the time. But there are certain people on that council that never vote against each other, and that is strange, and I think folks should take note. Anyway.
Well, and as I've said, and I've told people as I'm out campaigning, a good idea is a good idea, and I don't care whose mouth it comes from. I don't. And it's the same way with a bad idea. If I think it's a bad idea, then I'm not going to vote for it. But I don't care. I can leave my personality and feelings about somebody personally. I can put that aside. As I said, I've worked government too long, and trust me, there had been people over the years that I didn't necessarily like them or agree with them. Our personalities didn't, hit. But guess
Sure.
what? That stayed at my house. That's a personal issue. That's not a work issue. And to me, getting elected to city council, that's a job. That is a job that the people have put me in to do, and for me to do to the best of my abilities. And so personal issues need to be left alone, need to be put aside.
So if you're elected, how do you intend to hear from your residents,
I'm going to
constituents?
I'm going out to them. I'm sorry. I live in a ward, as I said, of senior citizens that possibly don't drive at night, or individuals with disabilities that don't drive at all, or the working mother that has to come home, or single parent. I don't even want to say mother. The single parent that comes home, has to feed kids, make sure homework's done, and maybe take to a sporting event. They don't have time to come to a 6 or 7 o'clock council or work session. They don't have time for that. I'm going to be going to the neighborhoods. I am going to be, during the 4 years, I'm going out to neighborhoods. I have met enough people that I feel I could ask, hey, can we do a front yard meet and greet? Let's talk about, what's going on here? What do you want done? How do you feel good?
So you would do that even though there isn't an election going on?
Heck yeah.
Because I saw some other folks who are running in the city of Huber Heights. They've just now began to do like the corner meet and greets, but not during, regular season.
No, Matt, I'm doing the job for 4 years.
Excellent.
I plan on going out to my folks. I don't expect Ward 4 to come to council meetings because, as I said, a lot of them can't come to council meetings. So I plan on going to them and saying, hey, what's going on? What can we help you with? Or do you feel things are going right? I plan to be their representative. This isn't about me. This is about them.
We'll get to the positive here in a minute, I promise. But give us a few things that you think if you're elected, you'll be able to improve upon that Huber is missing, or that Huber is going to face in the next 4 years. What are some things that you're thinking about outside of the infrastructure issue? We talked about that at length. But what do you think Huber really needs to focus on going forward?
Well, one is we own Miriam Meadows, and, we already did a $50,000 study of the citizens a few years back as to what they wanted to see there, and now we're, for whatever reason, back to ground zero. The citizens in Ward 4, I can tell you, I have met with the people on Ansbury and Leibold. They don't want apartments there. They just don't. The whole concept of Miriam Meadows, and I refuse to call it South Point. I'm sorry, but that is not South Point. That's somewhere at Austin Landing, I think. But
just to cut you off, and I hate to do this, and I'll let you get back, but doesn't that further the divide in the city of Huber Heights? Why would they want to create a north and south? Isn't Huber Heights, shouldn't that be a unified thing? Why would you call it South Point? That's one thing that's always been a pet peeve, or something that's always bothered me. Anyway.
Yeah, I didn't, and I love history. So why wouldn't we just, use something historical, call it Miriam Meadows?
Sure.
That's what it's been. What's wrong with that? But anyhow, that's just my little quirk and everything. But people wanted kind of a downtown feel, where they could walk around, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my mom, who's 87, doesn't get around as well. Man, how wonderful will that be if we could have something where, you park and her and I can go to a restaurant and eat, and she can go over to the post office and get her stamps, and, the library would be there. Just a little kind of
Awesome.
downtown feel would be amazing at that location. I even stated with COVID, I've learned I love the outside patio atmosphere, especially in the spring, summer, and fall. Just some restaurants with maybe the outside options as well there. We'll have Dogtown there. I have 4 dogs, maybe a restaurant or 2 that you can take your dog on the patio. Those kind of situations, somewhere that, on Friday night, my husband and I can go meet up with friends and, have drinks and a dinner and just a nice kind of homey atmosphere. I also, because when they did the town hall, I spoke, let's think outside the box. Let's think of a glitch that's going to bring people to Huber. I stated that my husband and I, we go up to the short north and Columbus just because it has such, kind of characters. There's just some differences to that where there's different kinds of restaurants, different little shops, that kind of thing. It's just something different to go do. So let's think of something we can bring a flair to Huber that draws people to Huber.
Exactly. Something that, apartments and houses, they're great to bring folks into the city. But what about the folks that don't live in the city? What is the draw? Well, you got the music center. That's nice, but that's a seasonal event. A downtown with interesting shops and venues would be awesome. I think that's a great thing, and it was never designed. Whoever did the city planning never designed a downtown area. So I think you're right. It would be wonderful.
And so, yeah, I'm hoping that, the renderings that have been drawn up showed, 11 apartment complexes and some quad units. And so you're talking, these nice quiet neighborhoods of streets of Leibold and Ansbury that are just these quiet streets with, when I was over there, it's a very, just, they all knew each other and just they're very friendly with each other over there, but they really just don't want to kind of be bothered. And you're going to pile a bunch of people against their backyards, which a lot of them have privacy fences. But if you're talking apartment complexes up against that, well, no privacy fence will work there. So they're not wanting that. And, we need to listen to the citizens. These people will be majorly affected if we go putting apartments there. They're like, they used to have the nightclub that got shut down, and I was talking to 3 families when I was over there, and they were just like, we didn't get sleep because that thing was just pounding off the walls to all hours of the night, and then they had the shooting there, and eventually got shut down. But they're like, we don't care if there's a respectable bar there, the one that's
Bob's Gone Saloon, it's gone.
Yeah. There's just like, we never had issues with that. And the noise stayed down and it was great. We don't care about that kind of stuff. So, yeah, but they're just like, we don't want major traffic. And also, I'm going back, Matt, if we don't have this infrastructure fixed, why are we pouring more apartments in with more, more road problems, more water line issues? Why are we doing this? We haven't fixed what we've got. Let's fix what we got before we do more big and better.
Exactly. So I promised we'd go to the positive. What is Huber Heights? What are they doing now that, if you're elected, you would continue to do?
I stay here for the people. This is home, Matt.
Perfect.
I feel that we can just do better. Just all the way around. As I said, I'm not anti-new. I'm not anti doing this, but I'm also, it does no good I look at a person's home. It does no good to do your landscaping all gorgeous and beautiful if your house inside's crumbling to pieces. Certainly. It just gives the falseness of everything's great there, and it's really not great. So by building more housing and more apartments and everything else, and not fixing the issues that need to be fixed with the infrastructure and the streets and stuff, you gotta keep up with the old in order for the new to work.
Awesome. So, what have I not asked you tonight that you would like to tell everybody that may be listening?
We need people to vote. We need to hear the people's voices. As I said, if elected, I'm going to go into my ward and I am going to talk with the people over the 4 years. It won't be, I just hear from her once every 4 years when she needs to get back into the seat. And that's the other thing, is I don't intend to make this a permanent seat for me. I feel that, 2-3 terms at most, that there is enough people in Huber Heights that are smart, intelligent, creative, good people, that I don't think there should be a permanent spot for people on council.
So you like the idea of term limits?
I do.
All right.
Do.
I like that too.
I truly do, Matt. I think my philosophy, and it has been on a federal level, but I really, once I got started here on a local level, I feel the longer you are in a public office, the more you owe favors to, which never works out for the individual citizen.
Right. Well, Ms. Kitchen, I appreciate you coming on Truman's Town Hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt, for having me. I really appreciate it.